The transport ship landed with a loud thud on the metal platform of Kepler Station. Dr. Jake Morrison grabbed his bags and stepped out into the humid air of Verdania Prime. The jungle planet stretched out in all directions, covered in thick green. Trees that reached toward the cloudy sky. Strange sounds echoed from the forest, bird calls, animal roars, and the buzz of insects he had never heard before. Jake was 32 years old and had spent most of his life studying old things. He was a xenorchaeologist, which meant he looked for clues about ancient alien civilizations. Most people thought it was boring work, but Jake loved it. He believed that the past held secrets that could help everyone understand the galaxy better. The space station was huge, built into the side of a mountain that overlooked the endless jungle. Scientists from many different worlds worked here, studying the plants and animals of Verdania Prime. Jake walked through the metal corridors, following signs to the research center. His footsteps echoed in the empty hallways when he reached the main lab. Jake saw 3 aliens standing around a holographic display. They were arguing about something in loud voices. The first alien was tall and thin with blue skin and 4 arms. This was Commander Vex Corvain, a Zephyrian who thought his species was better than everyone else. The second alien looked like a giant insect with shiny black skin and 6 legs. Dr. Thizes Morenthal was a Nexari, known for being very smart but also very cold. The third alien was short and round with gray skin and large eyes. Professor Quinn. Zelthara was an Altarian who had written many books about ancient history. Jake cleared his throat to get their attention. The 3 aliens turned to look at him with expressions that clearly showed they were not happy to see him. "So you are the human," Commander Corvain said in a voice that sounded like he was talking to a child. "We heard they were sending someone from Earth to help with our research. How amusing." "I am Dr. Jake Morrison," Jake replied politely. "I came here because my government received reports about unusual energy readings in the jungle. I think they might be connected to an ancient civilization." Dr. Moranthal made a clicking sound with his mouth parts. "Ancient civilization? On this primitive world? Your human imagination is quite entertaining." "The energy readings are real," Jake said, pulling out his datapad. "They show patterns that suggest artificial technology, not natural phenomena. Something is buried deep in the jungle, and it has been there for thousands of years." Professor Zelthara laughed, which sounded like a squeaking noise. "Human, your species has only been traveling between stars for 300 years. We Altarians have been studying ancient civilizations for over 5,000 years. If there was anything important on this planet, we would have found it already." "But the readings clearly show," Jake began. "The readings show nothing," Commander Corvain interrupted. "Human technology is primitive. Your sensors are probably malfunctioning. We have scanned this entire planet with equipment that is far superior to anything your species has ever built." Jake felt his face getting hot with anger, but he kept his voice calm. "I would like to examine the jungle areas where the energy readings are strongest. Even if you think I am wrong, scientific method requires that we investigate all possibilities." Dr. Moranthal's large black eyes stared at Jake. "You want to go into the jungle? That is very dangerous. The plants and animals there can kill you in many different ways. The weather is terrible. The ground is covered with thick mud. It would be a waste of time and resources." "I am willing to take the risk," Jake said. "I have experience working in dangerous places. I have studied ancient sites on 17 different worlds." 17 worlds, Professor Zelthara repeated with another squeaking laugh. "How impressive. One have studied ancient sites on over 200 worlds. The difference between human experience and real experience is quite large." Commander Corvain walked closer to Jake. His 4 arms moved in a way that seemed threatening. "Listen, human. We appreciate that your government wants to help, but this is serious scientific work. Perhaps you should focus on something more suitable for your abilities. Maybe you could help with cataloging plant samples or organizing data files." "I am a trained scientist," Jake said firmly. "I have advanced degrees in xenorchaeology and ancient linguistics. I have made important discoveries on other worlds. Important discoveries, Dr. Morenthal clicked. What kind of discoveries could a human make that we have not already found ourselves? Jake pulled up files on his datapad. I found evidence of a pre-Altarian civilization on Kepler 442b. I discovered tool-making techniques that showed intelligence levels higher than previously thought on Proxima Centauri. C. I proved that the stone circles on Volf 359 were actually communication devices, not religious monuments. The three aliens looked at each other and made sounds that Jake realized were laughter. It was not friendly laughter. Pre-Altarian civilization, Professor Zelthara said. Impossible. My people were the first intelligent species in that sector of the galaxy. Those were not communication devices, Dr. Morenthal added. They were obviously primitive art installations. Any competent researcher would know that. The human thinks he understands ancient technology, Commander Corvain said to his companions. This is what happens when a species develops space travel. Before they develop wisdom, Jake took a deep breath. He had dealt with this kind of attitude before. Many alien species looked down on humans because they were new to space travel. But Jake knew that being new did not mean being stupid. I would like to request a small budget for an expedition into the jungle, Jake said. If I am wrong about the energy readings, I will admit my mistake and leave the planet. But if I am right, the discovery could be important for everyone. The three aliens whispered to each other in their own languages. Then Commander Corvain turned back to Jake with a mean smile. Very well, human. We will give you a small budget, very small. You can have basic camping equipment and food for 2 weeks. You can take one vehicle and enough fuel for a round trip to the jungle. When you return with nothing to show for your efforts, perhaps you will understand why we did not waste time on this foolish idea. Thank you, Jake said. I will also need at least one other person to help with the expedition. Safety regulations require a minimum team size of 2. Of course, Dr. Morenthal clicked. We will find someone who is willing to waste their time with you. Jake spent the next 2 days preparing for his expedition. He studied maps of the jungle and planned his route to the areas with the strongest energy readings. He checked and double-checked his equipment to make sure everything was working properly. On the morning of the 3rd day, a young woman knocked on his door. She was human, with short brown hair and intelligent eyes. Dr. Morrison? I am Dr. Lisa. Chun, I work as a research assistant here at the station. I heard you need someone to help with your jungle expedition. You want to come with me? Jake asked, surprised. Do you know how dangerous it might be? Lisa smiled. I have been working here for 6 months. I have heard the way the aliens talk about humans. I think it is time someone showed them that we are not as stupid as they believe. Jake felt better than he had since arriving at the station. At least one person was willing to help him. Later that day, Lieutenant Ben Hayes from Station Security also volunteered to join the expedition. He was a big man with kind eyes who said he believed in giving everyone a fair chance. As Jake's team prepared to leave the station, the 3 alien scientists came to watch. They were still making their laughing sounds and talking to each other in amused voices. I give them 3 days before they come running back, Commander Corvain said loudly. 3 days is too generous, Professor Zelthara squeaked. Humans have no patience for real scientific work. Perhaps this will teach them to leave serious research to serious species. Dr. Morenthal added. Jake climbed into the expedition vehicle with Lisa and Ben. He started the engine and drove toward the jungle. Behind them, he could hear the aliens making bets about how quickly the humans would return in defeat. The jungle was waiting for them, dark and mysterious. Jake did not know what they would find in there, but he was determined to prove that humans deserved respect in the galaxy. The energy readings were real, and he was going to find out what was causing them, no matter what the aliens thought. The vehicle bounced and shook as it moved through the jungle. Jake gripped the steering wheel tightly while Lisa checked their equipment and Ben watched for dangerous animals. The trees were so thick that very little sunlight reached the ground. Strange sounds came from all directions, howling, screeching, and rustling noises that made them all feel nervous. "The energy readings are getting stronger," Lisa said, looking at her scanner. "Whatever is out there, we are getting closer to it." "Good," Jake replied, steering around a fallen tree. "The sooner we find it, the sooner we can prove those aliens." "Wrong." Ben pointed his rifle toward a group of bush that were moving. "Something big is following us. It has been keeping pace with our vehicle for the last hour." Jake stopped the vehicle and turned off the engine. The jungle became quiet except for the sound of dripping water and distant animal calls. Then they heard it, heavy footsteps moving through the undergrowth. "Should we investigate?" Lisa asked. "No," Ben said firmly. "We stay in the vehicle until we know what it is." The footsteps came closer. Then they saw it, a creature that looked like a cross between a bear and a lizard. It was as big as their vehicle, with thick scales and sharp claws. Its eyes glowed yellow in the dim light. The creature sniffed the air around their vehicle. Then it made a low growling sound and walked away into the jungle. "That was a Verdanian predator," Lisa said, reading from her datapad. "They usually do not attack unless they feel threatened." "Let us hope we do not threaten any more of them," Jake said. Starting the engine again, they drove deeper into the jungle for 3 more hours. The trees became even thicker, and the air became so humid that their clothes stuck to their skin. The energy readings on Lisa's scanner kept getting stronger. "We need to stop and make camp," Ben said. "It will be dark soon, and we do not want to be driving in this jungle at night." They found a small clearing beside a stream and set up their tents. Ben built a fire while Lisa cooked their dinner. Jake studied the energy readings on his scanner, trying to understand what they meant. "These patterns are unlike anything I have seen before," he said to Lisa. "They are not random. They have a structure, like they are being generated by some kind of technology." "What kind of technology?" Lisa asked. "I do not know. But it is something that has been running for a very long time. Maybe thousands of years." That night they took turns keeping watch. During Jake's shift, he heard singing coming from the jungle. It was not animal sounds, it was definitely voices, but they were singing in a language he did not recognize. In the morning, Jake told the others about the singing. "I think there are people living in this jungle. People that the Galactic Survey teams missed." "That is impossible," Lisa said. "The orbital scans showed no signs of intelligent life." "Maybe they live in places where the scans could not detect them," Jake suggested. "Underground or in caves or under the thick tree cover?" They packed up their camp and continued deeper into the jungle. The energy readings kept getting stronger, and now Jake's scanner was picking up traces of metals that were not in the galactic database. "Look at this," Lisa said, pointing to her scanner. "I am detecting titanium, but not normal titanium. This has a molecular structure that I have never seen before." "Advanced materials," Jake said excitedly. "Someone with very advanced technology has been here." Around midday, they came to a place where the jungle suddenly became different. The trees were arranged in neat rows, and the plants all seemed to be the same age. It looked like someone had planted them on purpose. "This is not natural," Ben observed. "Someone has been managing this forest." They followed a path that seemed to lead toward the strongest energy readings. The path was overgrown with vines and small trees, but Jake could see that it had once been paved with smooth stones. "This is definitely artificial," Lisa said, kneeling to examine the stones. "These were cut and shaped by intelligent beings." As they walked along the path, they began to see other signs of intelligence. There were carved symbols on some of the trees and piles of stones that had been arranged in careful patterns. "We are getting close to something important," Jake said that evening. They made camp near a group of large stones that had been arranged in a circle. Jake was examining the stones when he heard the singing again. This time it was closer, and he could see lights moving through the trees. "Hello," Jake called out in the universal trade language that most species understood. "We are peaceful researchers. We do not want to harm anyone." The singing stopped. The lights in the trees went out. Everything became quiet, then, slowly, figures began to emerge from the jungle. They were humanoid, but shorter than humans, with brown skin and large eyes. They wore simple clothes made from plant fibers and carried tools made from wood and stone. "The Korathi," Lisa whispered, reading from her datapad. "The Galactic Survey listed them as a primitive species with no real intelligence." Jake stepped forward slowly, keeping his hands visible. "Hello," he said again. "My name is Jake. We are here to learn about your world." One of the Korathi, an elderly female with gray hair, stepped forward. She spoke in a language that sounded like music, full of soft tones and singing sounds. Jake pulled out his universal translator, but it could not understand the language. He tried sign language instead, pointing to himself and saying his name, then pointing to the Korathi woman. The woman seemed to understand. She pointed to herself and said something that sounded like Senna. "Senna?" Jake repeated, and the woman smiled. Over the next hour, Jake, Lisa, and Ben managed to communicate with the Korathi using simple gestures and drawings in the dirt. They learned that the Korathi had lived in this jungle for many generations, and that they knew about the energy readings Jake was detecting. Senna drew pictures in the dirt that showed a large object buried under the ground. She pointed toward the deeper jungle and made sounds that Jake interpreted as warnings. "She is trying to tell us something about the energy source," Jake said to the others. "I think she knows where it is." Senna drew more pictures. She showed stick figures of people with advanced tools, and then she drew fire falling from the sky. She pointed to the buried object and made sounds that Jake thought meant sleeping or waiting. "I think she is telling us that advanced people once lived here," Lisa said, "and that they left something behind." Senna seemed to understand that they wanted to find the buried object. She spoke with the other Korathi in their musical language. There was a lot of discussion, with some of the Korathi making sounds that seemed worried or frightened. Finally, Senna turned back to Jake. She pointed to the deeper jungle and nodded. Then she made gestures that Jake interpreted as dangerous and forbidden. "She is willing to show us where it is," Jake said, "but she is warning us that it is dangerous." Ben checked his weapons. "We knew this expedition would be dangerous, but we came here to find the truth." "The other Korathi are afraid," Lisa observed. "They keep looking at the jungle like something terrible is waiting there." Senna drew one more picture in the dirt. It showed the buried object with lines coming from it, and stick figures standing guard around it. She pointed to her eyes and then to the jungle, making Jake understand that whatever was buried there was still being watched. "Watchers," Jake said. "She is telling us that the buried object has guardians." Senna nodded and pointed to herself, then to Jake and his team. She was offering to guide them to the Forbidden Place. "Are you sure about this?" Ben asked. "If the locals are afraid of this place, maybe we should be afraid too." "The energy readings are coming from that location," Jake said. "If we want to prove that humans can make important discoveries, we have to take the risk." Lisa packed up her equipment. "The aliens back at the station think we are wasting our time. Let us show them how wrong they are." Senna led them away from the stone circle, deeper into the jungle than they had ever gone. The trees became larger and older, and the air became thick with mist. Strange sounds echoed through the forest, mechanical sounds that did not belong in a natural environment. "Do you hear that?" Lisa asked. "It sounds like machinery." Jake listened carefully. She was right. Somewhere ahead of them, something was humming with electronic power. The energy readings on his scanner were stronger than ever. "Whatever is out there," Jake said, "it is still active after all these years." They followed Senna through the mist, not knowing that they were about to make a discovery that would change everything they thought they knew about the galaxy. Senna led them through the thick mist for 2 hours. The jungle became stranger with each step. The trees were enormous, bigger than any trees Jake had ever seen. Their trunks were so wide that 10 people holding hands could not reach around them. The roots formed complex patterns on the ground, like someone had designed them to grow in specific shapes. "This is not natural," Lisa whispered, running her hand along one of the massive tree trunks. "These trees have been modified somehow. Look at how perfectly they are arranged." Jake checked his scanner. The energy readings were now so strong that the device was making constant beeping sounds. "We are very close to the source," he said. Ben pointed his rifle toward the mist ahead of them. "I can see something through the fog. Something big." As they walked forward, the mist began to clear. What they saw made them stop and stare in amazement. The jungle suddenly ended, giving way to a massive clearing that stretched as far as they could see. But this was not a natural clearing. The ground was covered with metal panels that had been overgrown with vines and small plants. "My God," Lisa breathed. "This is artificial. The entire area is artificial." Senna stopped at the edge of the clearing and pointed forward. She made sounds that Jake understood meant sacred and forbiddance. Then she pointed to herself and shook her head, indicating that she would not go any further. "She has brought us as far as she can," Jake said. "The rest is up to us." Ben stepped onto the metal panels carefully. They were solid under his feet, but they had been there for so long that plants had grown through the cracks between them. "This is definitely not natural." "Someone built this place?" Jake pulled out his excavation tools and began clearing away the vines and dirt from one of the metal panels. What he found underneath made his heart race. The metal was smooth and perfect, without any signs of rust or decay. Strange symbols were carved into its surface, symbols that were unlike anything in the galactic database. "Lisa, look at this," Jake called excitedly. "These symbols are not from any known language. They are completely unique." Lisa ran her scanner over the symbols. "The metal is an alloy that I have never seen before. It contains elements that are not on the periodic table. This technology is far more advanced than anything the Galactic Council has ever developed." They spent the next hour clearing away more of the overgrowth. As they worked, they began to understand what they had found. The metal panels were not just covering the ground, they were the top of something much larger. They were standing on the hull of a massive spacecraft that had been buried under centuries of jungle growth. "This is a ship," Jake said, his voice filled with wonder. "A ship bigger than anything I have ever seen." Ben walked to the edge of the clearing and looked back toward where they had started. It must be at least a kilometer long, maybe longer. How could something this big be hidden from orbital scans? "The trees," Lisa said, pointing to the enormous trees around the clearing. "They are not just modified. They are artificial. Someone planted them here to hide this ship from detection." Jake's scanner was beeping so loudly now that he had to turn down the volume. "The energy source is coming from deep inside the ship. Something down there is still active." They searched the hull for an entrance and found it after another hour of careful exploration. An airlock door was partially visible through the overgrowth, its edges sealed with some kind of transparent material that had kept the jungle from growing over it completely. "Should we try to open it?" Lisa asked. "That is why we came here." Jake replied, "To find out what is inside." Ben checked his weapons and equipment. "If something has been waiting inside this ship for thousands of years, we need to be ready for anything." Jake placed his hand on the airlock door. To his surprise, it responded to his touch. Lights began to glow along the edges of the door, and he heard the sound of machinery awakening after a long sleep. "It is responding to human contact," Jake said in amazement. "The ship recognizes humans." The airlock door opened with a soft hissing sound. Inside, they could see a corridor that stretched into darkness. The walls were smooth and clean, as if the ship had been maintained perfectly despite being buried for centuries. "The air is breathable," Lisa said, checking her scanner. "Temperature is normal, humidity is low. It is like the ship has been keeping itself in perfect condition." They stepped through the airlock and into the corridor. As soon as they were inside, lights began to turn on automatically, illuminating their path. The corridor was wide enough for 6 people to walk side by side, with a ceiling that was 3 meters high. "This ship was built for humans," Ben observed. "The proportions are perfect for human use." They walked through the corridor, their footsteps echoing in the silence. The walls were covered with symbols similar to those they had found on the hull, but these were glowing with soft blue light. The ship is definitely active, Jake said. These symbols are not just decorations, they are displays of some kind. As they walked deeper into the ship, they began to see rooms branching off from the main corridor. Through open doorways, they could see chambers filled with equipment that looked incredibly advanced. There were devices that seemed to be floating in the air without any visible support, and screens that showed complex diagrams and star charts. This technology is beyond anything I have ever seen, Lisa said, staring at a room full of floating crystal structures. It makes our best equipment look like stone tools. They reached a junction where the corridor split into 3 different directions. Jake checked his scanner to see which way led to the strongest energy readings. This way, he said, pointing to the left corridor. The energy source is in that direction. As they walked down the left corridor, the lights became brighter, and the humming sound of machinery became louder. They passed rooms filled with equipment that seemed to be running automatic maintenance procedures. Robot arms moved along the walls, checking systems and making repairs. The ship is maintaining itself, Ben said in wonder. It has been doing this for thousands of years. Finally, they reached a massive door that was different from all the others. This door was covered with symbols that glowed with golden light, and it was twice as tall as a normal door. This must be the command center, Jake said. The energy readings are strongest here. He placed his hand on the door, and it opened immediately. Inside, they found a room that took their breath away. The ceiling was transparent, showing the jungle canopy above them. The walls were covered with displays showing star charts, technical diagrams, and streams of data in languages they could not read. In the center of the room stood a column of light that seemed to be made of pure energy. As they approached it, the light began to change, forming into the shape of a human woman. "Welcome," the woman said in perfect English. "I have been waiting for you." Jake, Lisa, and Ben stared at the holographic figure in shock. She was tall and elegant, with short, gray hair and intelligent eyes. She wore what looked like a military uniform, but it was more advanced than anything they had ever seen. "Who are you?" Jake asked. "I am Admiral Patricia Sterling of the United Human Space Command," the woman replied. "I am the artificial intelligence that controls this ship, the UHS Endeavor. I have been waiting for humanity to find me for over 3,000 years. 3,000 years? Lisa whispered. "That is impossible. Humans have only been traveling in space for 300 years. Admiral Sterling smiled sadly. "That is what you have been told. But it is not the truth. Humanity once ruled half the galaxy. We had an empire that spanned hundreds of worlds. We had technology that could crack planets and move stars. But that is impossible," Ben said. "If humans were that advanced, why do we not know about it?" "Because we chose to forget," Admiral Sterling said. "We chose to give up our empire and return to Earth. We chose to let other species develop without our interference. It was the greatest sacrifice in galactic history." Jake felt his mind reeling with the implications. "You are saying that humans voluntarily gave up advanced technology?" "Yes," Admiral Sterling confirmed. "When we first encountered other intelligent species, we realized that our technology was so advanced that we could easily conquer or destroy them, so we made a choice. We abandoned our colonies, destroyed most of our technology, and returned to Earth to start over." "But why?" Lisa asked. "Why would anyone give up such power?" "Because true strength is not about having the biggest weapons," Admiral Sterling explained. "It is about knowing when not to use them. Humanity chose to give other species a chance to grow and develop on their own terms. The other species in the galaxy," Jake said slowly, "they do not know about this?" "They have no idea," Admiral Sterling replied. "They think they are the advanced ones and humans are primitive newcomers. They have no idea that their ancestors learned to build spaceships by studying the ruins of human colonies." Jake looked around the command center with new understanding. "This ship, this technology, it is all human." "Yes," Admiral Sterling said. "The Endeavor was one of the last ships to leave the outer colonies. I was ordered to find a safe place to hide and wait for humanity to rediscover their heritage. And now we have found you, Ben said. Yes, Admiral Sterling agreed. And now you must decide what to do with this knowledge. The ship's weapons are still functional. The manufacturing systems can. Jake stared at Admiral Sterling's holographic form as the weight of her words sank in. Show me, he said quietly. Show me the truth about humanity's past. Admiral Sterling nodded and waved her hand. The walls of the command center came alive with images and data streams. Jake, Lisa, and Ben watched in amazement as the history of humanity's lost empire unfolded before them. 3,000 years ago, humanity discovered faster-than-light travel. Admiral Sterling began. Within 200 years, we had colonized over 400 worlds. We built cities that floated in the clouds of gas giants. We created space stations larger than moons. We developed weapons that could destroy entire solar systems. The displays showed images of massive human fleets traveling between stars. Jake saw space battles where human ships defeated alien forces with ease. He saw humans terraforming dead planets and building cities that stretched across entire continents. We were unstoppable, Admiral Sterling continued. Our technology was so advanced that other species could not even understand how it worked. We could manipulate gravity, control time, and create matter from pure energy. But if humans were so powerful, Lisa asked, how did we end up back on Earth with primitive technology? Admiral Sterling's expression became sad. Because we encountered the Kovani Collective. They were a peaceful species that lived on a beautiful world called Haven. When our exploration ships found them, they welcomed us with friendship and curiosity. The displays showed images of blue-skinned aliens with large eyes and graceful movements. They looked nothing like the arrogant Commander Corvain that Jake knew. These aliens were building art and music, not weapons, the Corvani had never seen. War, Admiral Sterling explained. They had no concept of violence or conquest. When they saw our warships, they asked us to teach them about the stars. They wanted to learn from us. Jake felt his heart sink as he understood what was coming next. Our leaders realized that we faced a choice, Admiral Sterling continued. We could conquer the galaxy and rule over all other species, or we could step aside and let them develop naturally. The Kovani made us see what we had become, a species. So focused on power that we had forgotten about wisdom. The displays showed human leaders meeting in great assemblies. Jake could see the debates and arguments that had torn humanity apart. Some wanted to keep their empire and rule the galaxy. Others wanted to withdraw and let other species grow. The decision was not easy, Admiral Sterling said. Many humans believed we had earned our place as rulers through our achievements. But others argued that true strength meant knowing when not to use power. What happened? Ben asked. The peace faction won, Admiral Sterling replied. Led by Admiral Sarah Martinez and General Robert Chun, humanity made the most difficult decision in our history. We would abandon our empire and return to Earth. The displays showed human fleets leaving their colonies. Jake watched as massive cities were evacuated and advanced technology was destroyed or hidden. It was the largest withdrawal in galactic history. We gave the other species our star charts, Admiral Sterling explained. We left behind basic technology that would help them develop faster-than-light travel, but we took our advanced weapons and manufacturing capabilities with us. You destroyed your own empire? Lisa said in wonder. We dismantled it carefully, Admiral Sterling corrected. We wanted to make sure that other species could use what we left behind to build their own civilizations. The Zephyrians, the Nexari, the Altarians, they all learned space travel by studying human ruins. Jake felt a mix of pride and sadness. Humanity had given up incredible power to help other species. But it meant that humans were now seen as primitive newcomers in their own galaxy. What about Earth? Jake asked. How did humanity forget its own history? Admiral Sterling's expression became even sadder. That was the hardest part of the plan. The leaders knew that future generations of humans might be tempted to reclaim their empire, so they made the decision to erase most records of the advanced period. The displays showed human scientists working to destroy databases and historical records. Jake watched as libraries full of advanced knowledge were deleted or hidden. They left only hints and legends, Admiral Sterling continued. Stories about ancient astronauts and lost civilizations. Most humans forgot that these stories were about their own ancestors, but some records survived, Ben observed. Yes, Admiral Sterling confirmed. Ships like the Endeavour were hidden on remote worlds, along with skeleton crews and artificial intelligences. We were ordered to wait until humanity was ready to learn the truth again. Ready for what? Jake asked. Ready to make the choice again, Admiral Sterling replied. The galaxy has changed in 3,000 years. The species that humanity helped develop have become powerful, but they have also become arrogant. They look down on humans as primitive, not knowing that humans taught their ancestors everything they know. Jake thought about Commander Corvain and the other aliens at Kepler Station. They had mocked him and dismissed human capabilities, never knowing that humans had once ruled their worlds. The Corvani, Lisa said suddenly. What happened to them? Admiral Sterling smiled for the first time since they had met her. They thrived. They became one of the most peaceful and wise species in the galaxy. They remember humanity with gratitude, though they do not know the full truth about what we sacrificed for them. And now? Jake asked. What is humanity supposed to do with this knowledge? Admiral Sterling gestured to the command center around them. The Endeavour is fully functional. Its weapons can destroy entire fleets. Its manufacturing systems can produce technology that will make humanity the dominant species again. The choice is yours. What are our options? Ben asked. You can activate the ship and reveal humanity's true heritage, Admiral Sterling explained. The galaxy would learn that humans are not primitive newcomers, but the species that gave them their civilization. You would command the respect that humanity deserves. And the other option? Lisa asked. You can keep the secret, Admiral Sterling replied. You can continue to let other species believe they are superior, while humans slowly develop their technology naturally. Jake walked to the transparent ceiling and looked up at the jungle canopy. Through the trees he could see lights getting brighter. The aliens from Kepler Station were getting closer. How much time do we have? He asked. Perhaps 30 minutes, Admiral Sterling replied. Their vehicles are slower than yours, but they have better tracking equipment. Jake turned back to his companions. What do you think we should do? Lisa looked around the command center with wonder. This technology could solve so many problems. Humanity could end hunger, cure diseases, explore the deepest parts of space. But it could also be used to conquer and control, Ben pointed out. Power like this changes people. It might change humanity in ways we do not want. Admiral Sterling nodded approvingly. You are asking the right questions. The same questions that your ancestors asked 3,000 years ago. What would you do? Jake asked the AI. I'm not programmed to make that choice, Admiral Sterling replied. That decision belongs to living humans. But I can tell you what I have learned from waiting here for 3,000 years. What is that? Jake asked. True strength is not about having the biggest weapons or the most advanced technology, Admiral Sterling said. True strength is about making the right choices, even when they are difficult, especially when they are difficult. Jake heard the sound of vehicles approaching through the jungle. The aliens had found them. They are here, Ben said, checking his rifle. What will you tell them? Admiral Sterling asked. Jake looked at the incredible technology around him, then at his friends, then back at the holographic admiral. In a few minutes he would have to face Commander Corvain and the other aliens who had mocked him. He would have to decide whether to reveal humanity's secret or continue to protect it. I need to know one more thing, Jake said to Admiral Sterling. Are there other ships like this one? Yes, she replied. 47 ships are hidden across the galaxy, all waiting for activation codes. If you choose to reveal the truth, humanity will have a fleet that can challenge any species in known space. The sound of alien voices echoed through the jungle. Above them, they were running out of time. Choose quickly, Admiral Sterling said. Once they see this ship, there will be no hiding the truth anymore. The sound of alien voices grew louder above them. Jake could hear Commander Corvain shouting orders to his team as they searched the jungle clearing. Through the transparent ceiling, Jake saw lights moving across the hull of the buried ship. "They have found the ship," Ben said, gripping his rifle tightly. "What is your decision?" Admiral Sterling asked Jake. "If you choose to keep the secret, I can seal the ship and make it appear inactive. They will think it is just an ancient relic, with no power." Jake looked at Lisa and Ben. Both of them were waiting for his choice. The weight of 3,000 years of human sacrifice rested on his shoulders. "If we reveal the truth," Jake said slowly, "what happens to the other alien species? Will they be enslaved or destroyed?" "That depends on what humanity chooses to do with the power," Admiral Sterling replied. "Your ancestors chose peace. You must choose for your generation." The aliens above them were getting closer. Jake could hear them talking about the strange metal panels and the artificial arrangement of the trees. "Jake," Lisa said quietly, "whatever you decide we will support." Jake took a deep breath. He thought about all the times aliens had mocked humans for being primitive and weak. He thought about Commander Corvain's arrogant laughter and the way the aliens had dismissed his research. Part of him wanted to show them how wrong they were, but he also thought about the Corvani, the peaceful species that humanity had chosen to protect. He thought about all the other species that had grown and developed because humans had stepped aside. "I have made my decision," Jake said. Before he could explain his choice, the airlock door above them hissed open. Heavy footsteps echoed through the corridors as the alien team entered the ship. "Fascinating," came Dr. Morenthal's clicking voice. "The technology in these corridors is beyond anything in our databases." "Impossible," Commander Corvain's voice followed. "No species has technology this advanced. These must be fake displays created by the humans to trick us." "The energy readings are real," came Professor Zelfra's squeaking voice. "Whatever is generating power in this ship has been running for thousands of years." Jake heard them walking through the corridors, their voices getting closer to the command center. "Admiral," Jake said quickly, "I need you to do exactly what I tell you." "I'm ready," Admiral Sterling replied. The footsteps reached the command center door. Jake positioned himself in front of Admiral Sterling's holographic form as the golden door slid open. Commander Corvain stepped through first, followed by Dr. Morenthal and Professor Zelthara. All three aliens stopped and stared at the advanced command center in shock. "This is impossible," Commander Corvain whispered. "This technology is thousands of years more advanced than anything we have ever seen. The metal composition is unknown," Dr. Morenthal said, running a scanner over the walls. "The energy patterns are unlike anything in galactic science." "Professor." Zelthara stared at the star charts on the walls. "These navigation charts show the entire galaxy, including systems that have not been discovered yet." "Hello, Commander Corvain," Jake said calmly. The three aliens turned to look at him. Commander Corvain's forearms moved in an aggressive pattern. "Human, you will surrender this discovery to proper authorities immediately. A primitive species like yours has no right to advanced technology." "Primitive?" Jake asked. "Are you sure?" "About that? Of course I am sure," Commander Corvain replied. "Humans have only been in space for 300 years. "You barely understand basic physics," Jake smiled. "Admiral Sterling, please introduce yourself to our guests." "Admiral Sterling?" Stepped forward, her holographic form shimmering with authority. "I am Admiral Patricia Sterling of the United Human Space Command. Welcome aboard the US Endeavor." The three aliens stared at the holographic figure in confusion. "United Human Space Command?" Dr. Morenthal clicked. "No such organization exists." "It existed 3,000 years ago," Admiral Sterling replied, "when humanity ruled half the galaxy." Commander Corvain laughed with all four of his arms waving. "Ridiculous. Humans 3,000 years ago were primitive cave dwellers." "Show them, Admiral," Jake said, the walls of the command center filled with images of humanity's ancient empire. The aliens watched in growing shock as they saw human fleets conquering worlds, human cities spanning continents, and human technology that made their own equipment look like children's toys. "This is fake," Professor Zelthara squeaked. "Humans could not have built this." "The Zephyrian homeworld," Admiral Sterling said, pointing to one of the displays. "Your people learn faster than light travel by studying the ruins of a human research station. The warp drive technology that your species uses was developed by human scientists." Commander Corvain's blue skin turned pale. "That is impossible. The next are mathematical theorems that form the basis of your computer systems," Admiral Sterling continued, looking at Dr. Morenthal. "They were translated from human databases that we left behind when we abandoned the outer colonies." Dr. Moranthal's clicking sounds became rapid and nervous. "And the Altarian archaeological methods that you are so proud of," Admiral Sterling said to Professor Zelthara. "They were developed by studying human excavation sites." Professor Zelthara made a choking sound. "You are lying," Commander Corvain said, but his voice lacked confidence. "If humans were so advanced, why did you return to being primitive?" "Because we chose to," Jake said. "Humanity gave up its empire so that other species could develop naturally." "That is the stupidest thing I have ever heard," Commander Corvain replied. "No species would voluntarily give up power. A wise species would," Admiral Sterling said. "When humanity encountered peaceful aliens like the Corvani, we realized that our technology gave us the power to destroy or enslave every other species in the galaxy. So we chose to step aside? The greatest sacrifice in galactic history," Jake added. "Humanity abandoned hundreds of worlds and destroyed most of its advanced technology so that species like yours could grow and learn." Dr. Moranthal was scanning the displays frantically. "The technology shown here is real. The energy signatures match what we are detecting. This cannot be faked." "And you expect us to believe that humans just gave up all this power?" "Commander," Corvain asked. "Look around you," Jake said. "This ship has weapons that could destroy your entire fleet. It has manufacturing systems that could produce technology beyond your dreams. But humanity left it buried in a jungle for 3,000 years. Why?" Professor Zelthara asked in a small voice. "Because true strength is not about having the biggest weapons," Jake explained. "It is about knowing when not to use them." "Commander." Corvain looked around the command center with new understanding. "If this is true, then humans could reclaim their empire at any time." "Yes," Admiral Sterling confirmed. "There are 47 ships like this, one hidden across the galaxy, all waiting for activation. Humanity could become the dominant species again within a year." "Then why do you not do it?" Dr. Moranthal asked. Jake looked at his alien colleagues who had mocked him just days before. "Because we learned something 3,000 years ago that you have not learned yet. Power without wisdom is dangerous. Strength without compassion is meaningless." "But you will be respected," Professor Zelthara said. "No one will mock humans again." "Respect that comes from fear is not real respect," Jake replied. "We would rather earn respect through our actions and choices." Commander Corvain stared at Jake for a long moment. "You are choosing to remain weak when you could be strong." "We are choosing to be wise," Jake corrected. "There is a difference." Admiral Sterling stepped forward. "The choice belongs to humanity. If they decide to reveal their heritage, I will activate the fleet. If they choose to continue the secret, I will remain hidden." Jake looked at the three aliens who had dismissed him as primitive and inferior. Now they knew the truth about humanity's past, but Jake had to decide about humanity's future. "Admiral Sterling," Jake said, "send a message to the other hidden ships. Tell them to remain in standby mode. Humanity is not ready to reclaim its empire." "But Jake," Lisa said, "think about what we could accomplish with this technology." "I am thinking about it," Jake replied. "And I'm also thinking about what we could lose." "Our humanity," Commander Corvain's forearms drooped. "I owe you an apology, human. I mocked you without understanding what you truly are." "You mocked me because you did not know better," Jake said. "Now you do." The question is what you will do. With this knowledge, Dr. Morenthal clicked thoughtfully. If we report this discovery, it will change everything. The Galactic Council will demand access to human technology. And if you do not report it? Jake asked. Professor Zelthara looked around the command center one more time. Then we keep the secret, just as humans have kept it for 3,000 years. The choice is yours, Jake said. You can tell the galaxy that humanity is not what they thought, or you can help us continue protecting the peace that our ancestors died to create. Commander Corvain extended one of his 4 hands to Jake. I choose to help protect the secret, and I choose to treat humans with the respect they have always deserved. Dr. Morenthal and Professor Zelthara nodded in agreement. Admiral Sterling smiled. Your ancestors would be proud, Dr. Morrison. You have chosen wisdom over power, just as they did. As they prepared to leave the ship, Jake took one last look around the command center.